All right.
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good. Right.
So what are the kind of reports are you hearing from the guys about Drake and Jacoby, and what are your thoughts on them now, a few months since we last talked to you about that situation?
I'm probably going to tell you the same thing I told you at the end of the spring, because that's what it is. What I'm happy about right now is the leadership role that Jacoby and Drake are taking with all of our guys. They throw on their own a lot. They address different issues that we have in the passing game with the receivers, and they're working with all the footwork and mesh and all that stuff with the RBs. They're doing some things on their own. It really reminds me of the first summer that I often refer to, where we had a lot of progress. We got out of the spring when we first got here, not knowing our team and feeling like we had some deficits, and we expressed that to Sam and all the guys that we had, and then that stuff got addressed in the summer. And when they came back in August, quite frankly, we were a different football team from a fundamental standpoint because of all the work that they did in the spring and in the summertime. And so that's where they are right now. They're in the middle of PLPs. Of course, the rules have changed a little bit there, so we have a little bit more access to them. They can use the ball at times, but they're doing a lot of stuff on their own, and a lot of that has been directed and driven by Jacoby Criswell and Drake May. So if there's any difference in my answer now, it's just that they have taken a greater leadership role with the team, particularly on offensive side of the ball, and we're getting some things accomplished and taken care of in preparation for this year's season. They learned the system more. They worked on some of the progressive stuff that Sam was so good at in the spring, and now they're gearing up to compete, and I think they're all doing that. And I've got to say, the other guys, Connor Harrell and Jefferson and Russell, are all here putting in the same amount of time. I think they're all excited about their opportunity to compete on this.
Sort of a follow-up to that, you said back in the spring, one of the things that you've been stressing is getting rid of the ball quicker. In the off-season, when there's not the same kind of defensive pressure they would face in practice or in a game, how can they improve in getting rid of the ball quicker?
So we're kind of policing them right now. They're policing each other, and we're not around with regards to, and we did this all spring in terms of getting rid of the ball, getting rid of the football. Saying we're going to get rid of the football, it's easy to say. You got to go do it. The reason that we're addressing it is because there are times in the past that we felt like at our quarterback position we held the football. There are times in the past where we felt like receivers should have done a better job getting open, so the strike point is there. There are times where we felt like we didn't protect well, and that includes not just the O-line, although it meant them, and it also included tight ends and running backs when they were in protection. And so all of that has to get better for us to be able to trigger the ball. But at the quarterback position, the way we get rid of the ball quicker is to make better and faster decisions. And that's where all these reps that they get play into us being able to trigger the football faster and take stress off of the O-line, the running backs, and the tight ends, and the physical aspect of protection. The other thing is Skelly is, from reading and watching clinics and listening to other coaches and talking to other guys in our field, Skelly is probably 7-on-7 is not as popular. I said nowadays, I think, with some people. They want a more realistic pass game, 10-minute or 15-minute set to throw the football. I still love Skelly. I think Skelly can be a detriment if you're standing back there and you're holding the ball through 4 seconds and you're doing something that's unrealistic to what you're going to do in the game. And so we run Skelly a little bit differently, and we are going to try and maintain the same clock for the quarterbacks. So we time Skelly, we time it on film when we evaluate it afterwards, and we're trying to make sure that we trigger the football on a particular play at the same speed that we would need to trigger it in team for it to be successful. And those are things that will continue, and those are things that we've been doing since we got here, but it's been the emphasis since the beginning of spring ball, and I think that's carried into the summer, and it's going to help us this fall.
Coach, Antoine Green wasn't here for the spring game. He arrived this summer. How have you seen him sort of assimilate into the locker room with the receiver?
You said Andre Green?
Yeah.
So Andre and O'Marion and Justin Kenyak all came at the end of the spring, and they are, what I'm really happy about is you see them in our building, and any legal time that we have to meet, they're maxing out that time, and they're spending time with coaches. And then on top of that, really we just talked about the quarterbacks and their leadership. I would say that's probably the other area that our quarterbacks have taken a much more active role. And I'm talking about all 5 of them. Andre Green sits down with Connor Harrell and they go over all the things that Andre needs to learn in preparation for August camp. O'Marion's doing the same thing, and so is Justin Kanya. I should add Spencer Rollins also, but he's in a different boat. That's a veteran who's been through all this before. He's already played college ball. He's an older veteran that understands this process already. The others are younger, and they're transitioning from high school to college, and it's just a different animal. So right now, they're doing a good job of putting the time in that they're allowed to put in to learn the system, and that's their challenge. Learn it in June. In July, learn how to run it as fast as we run it offensively. That's the big gap. You can learn the system, and then you learn how to execute it and do it physically in August. And the part that gets missed, in my opinion, by high school players that come in, whether they come in January or they come in May or June, is understanding how to get a signal or how to get a call or how to hear it in the huddle, and then lining up and being able to go and run your assignment and execute your technique with some instinctiveness. And that's the whole process that gets missed, I think, sometimes. So that's what our guys are doing right now. They're running what we call 40-10s. It's 40 plays in 10 minutes. And there's no way that you're going to be able to do that without understanding assignment. And there's no way to complete that drill without understanding how to execute your technique. And so the middle piece is this 40-10 drill that we run. And that's what our young guys are getting ready to attack second half of June and the month of July before we get to camp. Now, when they get a signal or a play call in August, they've been doing that all July, and they're able to take the knowledge that they're working on in the classroom and tie it into being able to get lined up, understanding what they got to do, and then it's our job as coaches to make sure that physically they executed well enough to compete in September.
Y'all had, I think, 6 wide receivers in the spring, and you added 2 freshmen, 3 freshmen. 8 wide receivers on the roster. Is that enough to do what y'all want to do?
Well, we've got 13 out there total,
yeah.
And we really appreciate the efforts by our walk-on crew also, because they're trying to learn the offense and compete and create an opportunity for themselves, but they're also on the veteran scholarship side, they're saving legs for us also. And so what we do through HES and the GPS system that we have is try to monitor their mileage so that we're not putting any more miles on their legs, one, than we need to, so that we're fresh on Saturday. And when you don't have 16 or 18 guys, you just have to monitor that mileage better. And the truth is, we haven't really had many years here where we've had many more guys. And so the key will be, 1, to stay healthy, 2, let's get the work done that we need to get done. And there's some different things that we do from a strategy standpoint when you don't have the higher numbers at that position. I may not throw 3 or 4 deeps in a row in practice, right? We're gonna throw it deep, and then we're gonna throw some shorts, and then we're gonna run the football, and I may spread it out so that we're not rolling through a bunch of long mileage plays for our guys. We're also monitoring GPS. If they max out where we want them in a day, we might pull them back or take them out. So we've been doing that for a while, Ross. I don't know that that's really a concern. It's just something that we have to stay on top of and manage as we go through every week of preparation.
How would you like to see Josh Downs improve? Like, what can he do better? Broke 2 school records last year.
So you think a guy had over 1,000 yards receiving, he's ID'd as one of the better receivers in the country now, he had 101 catches, what more can you do with him? Well, there were a lot of things schematically that I know we want to expand on to further take advantage of this weapon that we have. I think the other thing is, on the other end of it, on the player side of it, you go back, we evaluate just like we do at any other position. Same thing we do with Sam Howell. As well as he played at times and as great as he was, Sam and I can still go back, pull out all the negative cuts and ID areas of improvement. We've done the same thing with Josh Downs. So we had a negative cuts. I went through that with him because Lonnie Galloway's gone through that with him, just to address some of the things. And he's dying to get better. He wants to get better. So he's open to getting coached. He's open to hearing criticism. He's critical of his own play. And, he's trying to polish up. You're working on your craft. I mean, that's really what that is. So he's looking at what I did last year, what can I do better? And then we're looking at, on the coaching or the schematic side, what else are we going to do with him, because we can. So I don't ever want to lose a player to the draft or to graduation and regret not having done enough with him. You know, Dawson Knox is a great example. He was a tight end that we had at Ole Miss. He's starting at the Buffalo Bills. We had him for 24 games. He was healthy for a little over half of those. And looking back, you know, I often wonder, like, could we have done more with him because he was so good? His issue was more, we could use him when he's healthy, and obviously you couldn't when he wasn't. I just don't want to feel that way when we look at any of our players. I want to make sure that we get every drop of blood out of these guys that we can before they move on, whether that be into their pro career or, you know, their real life career here when they're done. So we will, I promise you, get everything we can out of Josh Downs this year.
Phil, with Jack McNeil coming in, and guys like Corey Green transfers, what differences have you seen with the offensive line of late?
You know, Coach, there's an advantage when you've worked with a coach before. Coach Brown brings up, you know, he's got 8 guys that either played or coached with him. There's an advantage there because you have a relationship. Coach McNeil coming in, we've got 2 years of SEC experience together, 2 years of being in this offense together, so that helps. I think really all we did leading up to spring ball, he came in here starting in practice too, but we tried to just re-educate and get ourselves on the same page that we were on then. You know, we both sides, he with the O-line and myself with the offense, we've made some upgrades and some improvements, so we shared those with each other, and then you implement them with the players. So the relationship there helps us. I think we're in line philosophically, so that's a plus. And you know, Jack's so easy to get along with, and I think right now there's a really good chemistry in our room with Coach McNeil and the returning coaches, because it's a really good staff. And then with guys like Corey Gaynor, who's been here all spring. Corey right now is viewed as one of the leaders of our offensive side, you know, offensive unit. And he's only been here about 4 or 5 months. And I think anybody on the offensive side, if you ask them who's one of the biggest leaders on our team on that side of the ball, they would identify Corey Gaynor. So it tells you he has value on the field. He's making Brian Anderson and our other centers better, and they're all competing for this job. And he's also brought a leadership piece because of all the experience he has, and you know, because he's a veteran. And then I think we're hoping to get the same out of Spencer Rollins, although he just arrived. And so he's in that process of learning the offense right now.
Coach, with all the talk about Josh, it seems like Antoine is kind of being overshadowed as like the other guy, quote unquote. How do you think his return is going to help you guys on the offensive side?
So I always think it's a good position to be in when you're not the one everybody's looking at. And you know, the challenge to the other skill players will be, if they want to invest more than one person to take Josh Downs out of the game plan, you have to make yourself as much of a productive factor on the field as you can. And the more, you know, and part of the air raid philosophy is distribution, it's ball distribution. So I would love to have Josh repeat the season he had last year, but I'd like to see the productivity of the other skill players go up, both in the backfield, at tight end also, in addition to just the other receivers. And you know, you bring up Antoine Green, I think he is poised going into what may be his last year. He's stronger than I've ever seen him, but more importantly, he's more confident than I've ever seen him. And same athlete, same weapon, same physicality and speed, without confidence is a completely different player than a guy with confidence. And it's not that Antoine didn't play with confidence last year, but he just looks like he's a guy that believes he owns the field right now. That's how he practices. That's how he's leading in the receiver room. And so I'm really excited about watching him take the field in August this year.
Phil,
We've got time for one more for Phil.
thank you, Jeremy. With Drake and Jacoby, just in terms of their development, do they remind you of anyone, any quarterback? You've been around so many. Do they remind you of anybody just at this point in the process of where they are as players?
No, they're both very different from each other.
Right.
And they're both very different from a lot of guys I've had in the past. You know, Jeremiah Briscoe at Sam Houston State and Jordan Tom, who out of all the guys that we had at Ole Miss, and Sam Howell, were all very alike. They're very calm, very poised, not that these guys aren't poised, but I think Drake and Jacoby have different personalities than some of the guys I've had in the recent past. The similarities, though, are the massive amount of study. Being around Sam has helped them understand how well preparation helps your game. And so those two along, I can't keep Connor and Drake and Jacoby out of the office. So I've got to really watch like how much time I'm with them because we only have X amount of time during the week to meet with them. And they're there. And then when I'm not there or I can't meet with them anymore, they're in there on their own with other players, prepping and going through all these things that we do. So I think there's a standard right now in the quarterback room that's been set, that is understood. And that's all 5 of our guys there. And it's just, it's a good trend that we have right now. We've got players, training players, not just in the quarterback room, but in every room. And after a while, it just kind of perpetuates itself, and it helps us do our job, in terms of preparing these guys. So personality-wise, they're different. They ask questions different. They talk about things different. That's why I meet with them one-on-one, because I think they're all on a slightly different level. And it's sometimes one-on-one attention with your kid is better than spending time with all 4. I'm speaking from experience. And sometimes a meeting with quarterbacks one-on-one is great, because they can ask any questions that pertain to them that don't really pertain to the entire room. And so they're all taking advantage of that. And it takes up more of my time, but that's my job. So I treat them all differently. I treat them all fairly, and we all prep, one-on-one outside of the install meetings when we do things together.
All right, thank you, Phil.
Okay.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Coach.